Hey everybody. So today I'm going to go over, well, I'm going to sort of talk a little bit about saddles and how there's a little bit of challenge for it, but I'm specifically speaking about one of these. Lady wants to be involved. One of these saddles, which is the Spiderflex right there. But for my experience, I have wide sits bones and large legs, which makes it hard to get just the right fit for a saddle where it won't rub against the inside of my legs, and that it'll be wide enough so that my sits bones sit on it, so that I don't, after a lot of riding and feeling like my hip bones are being pushed outward and away. And in the interest of that, I tried a different saddle for the last month or so, which was this guy, because after a tour I took this summer, I'd experienced, with 8, 10 hour days, enough riding pain just in right where I sit, like in the tissues around the sits bones, but not actually the sits bones themselves, because, you know, fit is still something I've had a hard time getting. That I decided to look at this guy. Let's see if I can prop this up and have this be usable. So, this saddle, yeah, the light's not very good there. Pardon me while I arrange. Come on. There we go. So, the Spiderflex saddle is set up so, and I'll just hold this with my hand, is set up so that you don't have a nose like you do here. You are missing the nose so that you have, instead of sitting any place sensitive right here, that ideally your sits bones will just go right in here, and you don't have to worry about compression of any of your sensitive tissues in the middle. It's just going to be straight away squared off. And this guy actually has a nice little feature where, let's see if I can show this. I need a little bit more force in order to show it, but that's a little bit of a shock absorber, which you can tell. Like, it makes for a bit of a cushy ride. So I got this after thinking about it for just years, going, oh, I don't really need that. I can make do with what I've got. I don't need another saddle, whatever. And I decided to treat myself to it a few months, like almost 60 days ago, and got this. Now, challenge with it is that you have to get the angles of this sort of just right. So let's see if I can just. You have to get the angles of this just right. So I'm gonna hold this, put this right up here so it's easier to see. So if you've got everything level, then you may notice there's a distinct forward slope. And without a nose here to catch you, it's really easy for this to make it so that you just feel like you're falling on your hands and pushing on your hands really hard a lot. So the sort of fitting guide that the Spiderflex people have is sort of to the extent of like, okay, well, the more relaxed kind of position you have, the more you angle it upward like this, and the more racy kind of position you have, the more you obviously put it forward. They recommend doing things like having the handlebars raised, and in order to sort of help with the sense of falling forward when using the saddle. Now, it's a shame that they don't have a lot more sort of guidance on how to get the fit for this just right. It's just a challenge for getting that down pat. Like my first couple days using this, like I was just exceptionally frustrated, and I got it better by fine-tune adjusting. And since since there's not a lot of guidance out there for this because it's more of a niche product, it's harder to get everything perfectly set. So like for instance, since this is a much thicker surface than a saddle that I've used for quite a bit before, then you have to lower this by a distinct amount compared to where you might have had your normal saddle placed at. And so that's just sort of general fit stuff. Like if I decide to keep it, and I'm sort of coming up close on the time frame where I have to decide that, then at some point I'll fiddle around and try to get more of a feel for it. But for pros and cons, I would say, like if you've got issues of sensitive areas, having problems getting a saddle that fits just right, you can get this and give it a try. And there's definitely people for whom this works really well. It's not hard to find folks out there who like it quite a bit. The shock absorbing thing is quite comfortable. You can tell when you're riding. It's like, oh, I'm not sitting on any of those sort of sensitive tissues right now. Okay, win, nice. But that comes at the cost of a few things. So one of them is that falling forward on your hands kind of thing. And this might be because I had it particularly egregiously offset at the beginning or something, but I actually ended up getting a case of gameskeeper's thumb or skier's thumb or whatever term you want to use for it from early on when I was first using it. Something I'm still trying to get back 100% from, which is not fun. It makes it hurt to do this. Ow, ow. In any case, so that problem was improved when I got the angling and position before and after this better, but it never quite got the chance to really get better from that. And let's see, some people talk about with noseless saddles that there's a stability problem for them. I am not I don't consider myself a finicky and hoity-toity kind of rider that, I need this for this and this. That phenomenon, at least in my experience, feels quite real. So in the same week that I installed this, my steering damper broke on my bike, and so stability in two places just like went out the window. So I went from feeling like, I can pedal with one hand and do this or blah blah blah, to like you can't take hands off the off the handlebars, like for more than like a millisecond kind of feeling, just because I felt shaky and unsteady. And once I put on my normal saddle that I've got on there again, then I was able to go, okay, yeah, I wasn't being crazy. That's a real sense. And the fact that this was sort of putting a lot of pressure on my thumb, right? I can't point at it while holding the phone. Put a lot of pressure on my thumb right here because of just pushing onto the handlebar. Okay, don't know what that was. Means that, yeah, that's a problem and it's something to sort of deal with. Now, and part of the challenge, man, you really want to be involved, don't you, girl? And part of the challenge of all that is if you can get your sits bones right in here and get the up and down angling right, then that's a big improvement for making the fit work. But if you haven't done it before, it's surprisingly difficult because you'll sit on the bike and go, I can't tell if it's right there, because falling into these holes and being forward of this can feel sort of similar when you're trying to figure it out. And so you'll lean forward and feel where your sits bone spot is and go, okay, is that lining up right there? And if you don't have this up and down angled right, if you have it too far up, then, at least on me, this ridge right here will start hurting on the back of your hamstrings, like right at the bottom of your glutes, and of your butt, and that's not really fun, especially if you're like, for me, I'm wanting something like this or some ideal saddle situation for the sake of like being able to long distance ride, for being able to make it work for a long distance. So I'd say, like, if you're curious, if you're looking for something and you're curious, look into this. The company is really very nice. Like, I sent them a question about fit issues and whatnot, and they said, well, the guy who started the company, the owner, called me and talked with me for like half an hour. They're Canadian and very, very nice. But he didn't have a lot of sort of guidance that would give me sort of specifics as to how to adjust it, which, I appreciate. Like, he hasn't ridden a normal saddle for years, so he doesn't think in the way of like adjusting this in that kind of way anymore. But he also extended my return period that I could have to 60 days. So I might avail myself of that. I'm not sure yet, but I don't have a lot of time left to choose. So I'm not sure if this will quite work for me. My advice for you, if you are interested, you can get it. Their standard return period is 30 days. If you ask, they might extend it to 60. And don't immediately put it on the night before you're taking your commute into work, or when you're going to have a long ride where you need to have everything work spot on the next day. Like, this is a setup and a saddle that requires experimentation in order to get yourself right, and you don't want to have downhill or uphill or weird conditions to be the first place you start doing it. And yeah, I hope that's helpful for you guys, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks. Bye.